Waking up on dark, Wade Carmichael getting down to the contest site here at Strickland Bay and getting ready for an opening day of competition. David Silva getting waxed up, Caroline Marks on hand, trying to keep the momentum rolling here in 2021. Bright and early, checking out those early morning conditions. Leo Fioravanti had a great warm-up last night out here at Strickland Bay. Tyler Wright and Joanne DeFay checking out these early morning conditions. Connor Coffin got some fun waves yesterday working with Glenn Micro Hall. Some fun lefts and rights working out this lineup for the first time as he prepares for the seeding round. Welcome to opening day. Gorgeous sunrise here on Rottnest Island for the Rip Curl Rottnest Search presented by Corona. Everyone here on hand waiting to see what Strickland Bay has in store for us. Surfline told us today looks like a great possibility to get a log done on this opening day. Thanks for joining us on the Harvey Norman host set. Joe Turpel, Ronnie Blakey, and Richie Lovett. Ron, great to see you, my friend. How was the ferry ride, and how are you getting settled into Rottnest?
I'm loving it. I'm loving it. The search back on. It's been 10 years, and, you know, what a great buzz for all the competitors to check out a new location. You know, that local knowledge factor or just experience is thrown out now, and it's going to be fun watching all the surfers battle it out for the win here.
Well, as we know, the Search Series used to be guessing, where is everybody? And sometimes a commentator would slip back in the day, and we'd try to discover the location. We knew that Rottnest was going to happen. We know we've had events in the past here, Rich, but we've never had a championship tour event here at Rottnest. This is going to be exciting.
This is going to be awesome, and I think our competitors are really, really excited to be over here at Rottnest Island. The waves are a really high-performance playground. We're going to step back from that real big wave stuff, and they're really excited to get things underway here.
Let's see what our plans are for opening day as we say good morning to Stace Galbraith and Jesse Miley-Dyer.
Morning, Joe. Morning, gents. Jesse, it's been 10 years, but we're back on the search.
Yeah, it's good. I'm happy to be here.
And what have we got going on over our shoulder?
We've got waves this morning, which is great. Really nice offshore wind, and the swell that kind of we've been looking at and Stomper's been watching for us is here. So we're going to have a full day. We're going to start with the men's seeding round, and we're going to be going straight into the women's seeding round after that.
Any quokka wildcards to be mentioned?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I was a bit scared to ride out here this morning on my bike just because I don't want to hit one. But I think there's a couple of people in the draw here that are definitely dangerous. I think Mia's really excited to be here, but it's cool to be here and we're happy.
Awesome. Host of good wildcards coming up throughout the event. Back to you guys.
Thanks a lot, Stace and Jesse. You can see the competitors in the lineup. They'll be called in very shortly because the contest is on. Kicking off with Griffin Colapinto, Owen Wright, and Mikey Wright for 30-minute heats. Quokkas are everywhere on this island, and everyone's already been putting up their selfies. But also there's much more meaning to this island with a very interesting history. Professor Lenny Collard is able to take us through the history of Rottnest Island.
You ever heard that modern yarn about rising sea levels and stuff like that? But that's a really old story. You know, Noongas are saying, gee, these Wodgers, boy, they just found out about rising sea levels. Wow. The old Noongas used to tell them stories. And one of the stories was they used to walk to Wajima. If you follow the Western science logic of how do they figure out sea level rise and falls, they reckon about 7,000 to 10,000 years ago, the sea levels rose, and hence the islands off the coast all got cut off, and they, became to what they are today. So if you think about it this way, today, and in the next few months, the World Surfing League will be getting over there, taking all the guru and guruesses surfing champs in the world, and we'll be on a nice boat cruising over, and it'll be all good. But just think about it, that once upon a time, people were walking 20 or 30 metres under whatever the depth of the water is. We went over there in the 60s as kids with my mum and dad and the extended rest of my family, but we weren't really tuned into the history of Rotto in that sense. But there were, little strings of yarn being spun about it. There was me and a couple other crew, and we went out to Strickland's, and when we got there, our eyeballs bogged out of our head, mate. There was this wave, we'd never seen anything like it. It was just massive, big blue, classic blue and turquoise waves coming, and we're sort of looking there going, whoa, it's not like Cottesloe, not like Cottesloe, this is something else. So we tie our things and off we go, and we're paddling out, and these things were just pumping these big A-frames. As we're paddling out, all of a sudden this thing, being young blokes, in our mind it was a shark. And fortunately it was a dolphin, but it frightened the living crap out of us. And we went out there and got beaten from pillar to post. And so that's part of learning to surf, I suppose. I was about 14, so I don't know, how am I up? 61 now, so it must have been 40 odd years ago we went there. The irony is you go there with a certain, sort of understanding, comprehension of something. And then only later in life you suddenly realise, oh, hang on, there was stuff going on over there which we weren't tuned into. But we were conscious, but we weren't fully engaged in thinking about it as a colonial prison as such, because we were too busy going surfing. In the English period, when the invasion and the occupation was taken on and the colonial wars were on in Australia, the Noongar and Yamaji and the Wongai patriots were defending the homeland. So the first people to defend this land were the Aborigines. They are the first patriots. They stood up against the invading forces, fought tooth and nail to defend their homelands, to defend their loved ones and defend their country. Rottnest becomes a colonial prison, the biggest of its kind in Australia, for 100 years or something or other, in the wars on the west coast of Australia. Now, men and boys are being brought down, removed from the country on the chain, brought down here and shipped out to Rottnest to serve their sentences. As time went along, with a stream of thousands of Aboriginal men being brought into the Wajima prison, and just to remind people, Sean, that it's the biggest prison colonial site in Australia. There's nothing bigger. It's the biggest deaths in custody site in Australia. If you know about deaths in custody, we're going over here. So these are where the surfers are going, mate. As a young bloke, I went out there surfing, and when I slept out there, I slept on top of the graves of the old people. I didn't know I was sleeping on the grave. No one told me. But mind you, I used to have this horrific nightmares, and I came home and I used to talk to my pop and other oldies and sort of saying, having these weird dreams over there, what's all that about? And of course then things are revealed to you. When you go there, there's a feeling to it, and it's a really powerful thing, but there's beauty as well, and there's goodness too, but there's a negative energy, and so you've got to be careful how you walk in the negative, and the positive you sort of got to try and walk in the middle. We can tell the truth till the cows come home, but then what's after that? What's the applied praxis of the dialogue? Because, talking about the thing over and over and over and over and over and over becomes a bit boring and tedious. And I'm saying, okay, boys, you've already heard the yarn once, now what are we going to do about it? So for me, what surfing, I think, in Australia can do is, I think one of the aspirations that we're doing right now is we're setting up a National Aboriginal Islander Surfing Association. Bring on a strategy to start addressing some of these challenges, because there's really fine attributes in surfing, but I think we can do better. Because in surfing, I don't know if you know about it, Sean, you've ever noticed that, but in surfing, there's nothing worse than some bod turning up in your backyard and thinking they own your break and just go about it in a really disrespectful way. I think surfers around the world know what I'm talking about. And you know what? Aborigines knew that before surfers knew that. Wajima is a powerful place, and I think you're here because of that power, and you're talking to me because of that power, and I'm talking to you about how that power is going to reverberate like that, that water that's where you threw the rock in. It's going to go right across Australia, and in fact, it's going to go around the globe.
Welcome back to the morning show, everyone. As we were just at Margaret River, you can see on the map there of the world, we were able to head 3 hours north of Perth, jump on a chartered ferry out of Fremantle, and head over to Rottnest Island. From there, you end up staying on the opposite side of Strickland Bay. We see those little dirt tracks and the sand that you have to get through. You can either get a bike, rent one to get down here to the beach, or jump on the buses that are scheduled every hour and get down to this venue where the world's best will be competing today on opening day. It feels like a true adventure, like the true search feeling that Rip Curl brings to us. It's not your typical contest site. You've got to pack for the entire day, and there's no one really around. So it's a really special feeling that we're going to be running heats in a situation like this.
Definitely, and one of those unique situations. I was explaining it to someone last night. It kind of feels like we're back in Fiji somewhat, where everyone's together on the one island. It's like Tavarua with jackets on. But seeing that Google Earth shot there was really cool. It kind of reminded me of how great the Search Trophy is. Haven't been able to hand one of these out for 10 years. So, yeah, it's going to be awesome to see who takes the win here.
Oh, really cool to see everyone in this kind of setting. And it's interesting, too, to know a lot of the WA locals, like Jacob Wilcox and crew, they haven't been here that often. They have so many great waves to surf. So they're also going to be trying to figure out Strickland on the fly. As we check out the leaderboard on the men's side, Gabriel Medina did get knocked out early at Margaret River, but still heads into this event #1 in the world, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, his form in the Australian leg and also in Hawaii was just remarkable. And, you know, a little bit off, had an off day down at Margaret River there, but he'll be looking to bounce back in a big way. Obviously, Italo Ferreira, and then Philippe's moved right up into third position as well. Those guys like Connor Coffin, they had a little taste of the top 5. They've dropped out now, so a little bit more work to do there. And then there's a whole nother story in the back half of the ratings as well.
Also big news when you check out the heat draws. We look at who's in, who's out. Kolohe still recovering from his injury, along with Kelly. We heard the news about John, and then Ace Buchan with his lower back. That was tough to hear, but bringing in some familiar faces. Taj Burrow, Stu Kennedy, Liam O'Brien, Mikey Wright as well. First injury call-up for the entire year. Added to the event wildcards, Wilcox, Cale Walsh, and Mia McCarthy. Ronnie, out of those wildcards, who do you think has the best shot at winning this event?
Oh, man, that's a big question. And I think Jacob Wilcox, for me, is a surfer that is championship tour caliber. He definitely doesn't look out of place. We saw that at Margaret's. He just has huge turns. He's an exciting up-and-coming surfer, but, you know, with all those injuries, we're seeing some surfers that we've seen do the run on the championship tour before. Stu Kennedy has obviously had big results at the CT level, and Taj is kind of an unknown. We've seen in the Stab in the Dark project that his surfing is still at a really high level. But we'll see how he fares with the jersey on.
Looking forward to it. That was really incredible news, having Taj back. He looks happy and ready to compete. Heat 1 is spectacular because we have two brothers surfing against each other. Mikey Wright, Owen Wright will be taking on Griffin Colapinto. How's that brotherly vibe going to be this morning?
Yeah, this is a great heat. There'll be no brotherly love going on down in this one for sure. But the interesting thing, Owen and Mikey, they're both sort of down the back half of the ratings there. They've got some work to do. And obviously Griffin having quite a good event there at Margaret River. He's looking in form there as we see Tyler and Mikey just coming in from the free surf. Everyone was out there this morning, and it was great to just check it out. They're all getting to know the lineup a little bit more, see who's in form, but great to see guys like Stu Kennedy out there as well, back on tour just for this event. This is going to be exciting. So
many great heats to look forward to. Heat 1's going to be classic. We'll see who ends up on top out of the brothers, but also Heat 5 is screaming at us as well, Ron. Really fun to see all the title race in motion, where we are here at stop number 5 of the season. Who's going to end up on top with a Brazilian world champs and one of the all-time favorite heroes of the tour, Taj Burrow?
Yeah, this is a really fun heat. Adriano de Souza, we've seen him just sort of find that passion for competition again, announcing his retirement. Taj has obviously had some time away from the tour, but, you know, de Souza, I think in new locations has always been able to adapt well. He's got that really solid stance, but this guy is just on another level at the moment. Medina, Italo, Toledo, that they're just going to be so hard to shift out of the top 3 on the leaderboard. They're looking good for that final 5. Taj obviously has more experience in this particular lineup than the current Championship Tour surfers. So, you know, it's hard to kind of pick a winner, but for me, Italo's the guy to beat in that heat.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. Italo's so strong, especially in these conditions, and I'm wondering if some old rivalries will inspire Taj and de Souza being next to each other. Heat 6 is also incredible, Rich. Gabriel Medina, world number 1. He has been the force this year. His best start of his entire career as he's chasing down a 3rd world title. He has Jack Freestone and the trials winner, Cale Walsh.
Yeah, well, Cale, we've seen him on his social clips getting some pretty gnarly big barrel rides. He does those huge airs, and it's going to be great to see him here at Stricko. Jack Freestone got a little bit of work to do. He's been a bit hot and cold. And, of course, Gabriel, he has just been the man to beat. Just on an absolute tear through Australia. And have a look at this. This was at Narrabeen. Just those high-flying aerial manoeuvres, so confident, so sturdy on his feet. And he is just in cyborg mode where he is just taking down all of his competitors.
When you think about your power surfer, Rich, who are you going with?
Well, mate, I've actually got Gabby at the top of my list. I've got a few other ones in there as well that I'm not going to let too much out of the bag in the opening show. We maybe talk about that later in the day, but Gabby's definitely my power pick.
Plenty of time to set up your fantasy surf teams. Gabby Medina, even though he still hasn't quite figured out the system at Margaret River Main Break, he still had such a healthy lead with 3 straight finals and that win back to Narrabeen. Looking at the conditions at Strickos, looks like we're expecting him to podium once again.
He's so strong. Even at Main Break this year, I thought it was the best he'd surfed down there. Uncharacteristically had a bit of an off heat, but when you looked at the big moments that he had in a losing heat, he was still surfing so damn well. So I just feel like he's going to rebound this wave a bit more high performance, and we know that then when that's been the case, especially on the East Coast this year, he's just been unbeatable.
Looking forward to seeing how Medina handles this venue here at Strickos. He said he's had some fun free surfs, and he's ready to compete. Coming up next on the morning show, we'll dive into the women's heat draw and have our picks to who's going to take it out. We'll be right back. Welcome back to opening day. The contest is on, starting off with the men's seeding round as we dive into the women's side, which is still on call to compete later on today. Carissa Moore remains at the top of the leaderboard. Tati moving into a close second after the win at Margaret River run.
Yeah, amazing. The rise of Tatiana Weston-Webb. She's been in the final series at every stop so far, getting that all-important second victory. She'd had that run of finals and so many runner-ups. I'm sure that, you know, it was a massive relief to her, but she's positioned herself so well, and she'll be hard to knock out of that final five.
It's interesting, Rich, because we look at all the events so far this year. Tyler's win, Carissa, Caroline, Tati, different winners at every stage. Do we expect that theme to continue here at Rottnest?
I hope so, because I think it's great for spectators, it's great for us, it's great for the sport to have such a seesawing battle up the top of the ratings there. And I just, when I was looking at the ratings, I saw Courtney Conlog way down there in 9th position. She was the first one on site this morning out of all the surfers, so that's an indication of where her head's at. She wants back up there into that final five.
So true. Thinking about heats to watch on the women's side, it comes really out of the gates. Heat number 1, 7-time world champ Steph Gilmore still waiting for her first win of the season, but she accomplished her personal best result in the West, finaling with Tatiana Weston-Webb. Expectations for herself at Strickland Bay run.
Yeah, I'm sure she's got huge expectations. I think she goes into every CT event thinking the win. Even with the second at Margaret River, I think she was happy, but probably it still stung a little bit. But she's got a really difficult first heat here. Bronte McCauley, she's just been so strong this year. I don't think Bronte's had that big breakthrough final result just yet, but she is on her way. Macy Callahan, she's lost out in 2 of her highest scoring heats as a championship tour competitor in the last 2 events. So even though Steph's coming off a final, I think this is a really tough heat for her.
Really challenging heat to kick things off at Strickland Bay. We did catch up with Steph at the press conference talking about her performance in the West.
Yeah, of course. I think for myself, my results in the past at Margaret River haven't ever been that great. So to get a second place and to kind of break through that semi-finals was a great confidence builder for me. And I just think, you know, on the Australian leg, I just never really clicked into a gear where I felt comfortable. And I guess like having a full 12 months off the tour, I definitely lost a bit of that mojo and was sort of a bit too relaxed and coming into the event. So I couldn't quite find the gear that I needed to get good results. So happy with the second at Margaret's, and I'll definitely learn from that final what I can do better and hopefully go one better at the events from here on out.
Always so great to hear from Stephanie Gilmore. She's been on tour longer than anybody, but she's never been more challenged than now in her career as she's fighting for a spot in the final 5. I think her later world titles have had more meaning, more challenges, because we have other world champions really pushing her to the limits, like Carissa Moore, who's had a stellar start to the year, is world number 1, and knowing how high performance she is, we're thinking that she'd be a clear favorite to win this contest at Rottnest. How does her heat look, Ron?
It looks amazing. It's funny thinking about Carissa, her last 2 events, semi-final finishes. She's in a slump. You know, she's taken 2/3 from the last 2 events, and you know that's kind of as bad as it's going to get for Carissa. That's what it feels like to me anyway, Rich. She's just so strong. You don't see her losing out in the early rounds that often, and I think with the surfing that she's doing, she's got to be the favourite for every event on the schedule.
Yeah, I think so. It's undoubtable with surfing like this. Just have a look at the form that she's bringing on the open face. She's taking to the air, but I feel like Strickland Bay at Rottnest Island is going to be a little bit of a leveler for her. Given that, you know, traditionally her forehand is just so strong. The backhand, yes, it's strong, but there are other women on the tour who can start to match it with her there. And I think predominantly this left-hander is going to sort of pay into the favour of surfers like Macy Callahan and those other Sally Fitz who are quite strong on their backhand.
Fantasy surfing, power surfer, Rich, going with Carissa?
Well, I did, yes. I put Carissa up the top there, but those other 2 names that I just mentioned, you know, I've slotted them into my fantasy surfer team as well, just given the form of Macy and also Sally, how strong she is on the back end. But the field really opens up in my mind when you look at this wave overall.
Remember, power surfers, your points are doubled, so choose wisely. Carissa Moore, obviously a favorite in all conditions, like you mentioned, Ron. as she's going to be very tough to beat. Remember, we're getting close to the start of the event. Griffin Colapinto dealing with the Wright brothers. We'll be back right after this.
Wait, Mira.
Such a beautiful opening ceremony in the Welcome to Country. Here to Wajima, also known as Rottnest Island, the world's best, went up to dance with the Wajak Noongar, and it was a great celebration as they educated us all on the deep meaning and all the history that's taken place here, as we see Professor Lenny himself who'll be joining us later on in the broadcast. The great historian, the Wajak Noongar elder. What an incredible surfer as well, coming here to Rottnest years ago, here with his entire family, his wife, his daughter.